We're expecting a timeline soon in the federal case involving former President Donald Trump, and that timeline could arrive as early as this week. The judge presiding over the classified documents case, Judge Eileen Cannon, is set to hear arguments tomorrow on how the information will be handled. This pre-trial conference comes more than a month after the Justice Department unsealed its charges. Trump is facing 37 counts tied to sensitive materials that were found at his Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida. He has pleaded not guilty. Joining us now is CBS News congressional correspondent Scott McFarland. Scott, thanks for being here. We've got this pre-trial conference coming up. I'm not entirely sure what exactly that means or what they'll go over. Can you break it down for us as I deal with this fly at 2 p.m.? Absolutely, Tony. A few things are clear, a few are still murky. It's at 2 p.m. Eastern tomorrow in Fort Pierce, Florida, north of Miami at the federal courthouse there. All right, so let's make sure I've got this straight. The classified documents case against Trump was supposed to be over, done, finished. The whole thing was dismissed. Trump had supposedly won that battle. He's back in the White House, running the country, and everyone should be moving on, right? Well, not quite. Because now Trump's own co-defendants are making moves that could blow this entire situation open again. And the craziest part is that Trump might actually end up hurt the most by whatever happens next. Walt Nauta and Carlos de Oliveira, the two men charged alongside Trump in the classified documents case, just filed an emergency motion asking Judge Eileen Cannon to block the public release of Special Counsel Jack Smith's final report. They're claiming the report could harm their interests. They're saying it should never see daylight. And Trump's team is scrambling with them, pushing for incoming Attorney General Pam Bondi to remove Jack Smith immediately before anything becomes public. But before we go any further, let's be honest, mainstream media can't really be trusted anymore. That's why we built Punk Politics, to bring real stories, real context, no corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, join our free newsletter. We'll send news straight to your inbox every day. Just click the link in the description. And if you want to support what we do, join us and be part of a community that actually cares about the truth. All right, back to the video. This hearing is in front of a Trump appointed judge, Judge Eileen Cannon. Her name might sound familiar since she oversaw legal challenges to the Mar-a-Lago search warrant last August and issued a controversial ruling that was later overturned. Tomorrow's hearing deals with classified information. And if that sounds bureaucratic and dull, trust me, you are underestimating just how deeply bureaucratic it can get. they'll be going over procedures for handling classified records in a case that is guaranteed to involve plenty of them. Look at the charges. Trump is accused not only of concealing classified documents, but sharing them with people who had no security clearances. That's the baseline. But tomorrow, we're hoping to hear more about the timetable, the trajectory toward a historic trial, potentially the first criminal prosecution of a former president in federal court. Now think about the dynamic. Trump keeps saying he's been completely vindicated. He insists these cases were political witch hunts and now they're over. But if that's true, why is everyone terrified of this report becoming public? If Trump did nothing wrong, if it was all partisan, wouldn't you want the report released so everyone could see the accusations were baseless? Wouldn't you be celebrating the chance to prove innocence? Instead, we've got emergency filings, frantic letters to the Attorney General, desperate attempts to bury whatever Jack Smith compiled. That alone tells you something. And here's where it gets interesting. Nata and De Oliveira aren't necessarily acting in Trump's best interest. They're acting in their own best interest. They still face potential legal exposure. Even though Trump's case was dismissed, that doesn't automatically erase their risk. If Smith's report includes damaging details about what they did, details that could be used against them in the future, they want it hidden just as badly, maybe even more. Trump has the protection of the presidency. They don't. They're private citizens who could still face real legal trouble depending on what comes out. And the complications don't stop there. Remember Yusel Taveras? The IT worker at Mar-a-Lago who initially went along with what Trump's team was doing. Something changed. Taveras flipped. He cooperated with Jack Smith's investigation. He altered his testimony, and that cooperation enabled the obstruction charges against Trump and his co-defendants. He was an insider, someone who saw things firsthand and eventually chose to tell the truth. Whatever he told investigators is almost certainly part of that final report. And now Congress is stepping in, too. The House Judiciary Committee has subpoenaed Jack Smith for a deposition scheduled for December 17th. They want him to explain his investigations. They want documents, communications, everything. Jim Jordan is driving this, claiming he needs to understand how the probes were conducted and whether they were politically driven. But here's the catch: if Republicans truly believe these investigations were bogus witch hunts, wouldn't they want the report out there so they could tear it apart? The fact that so many people are scrambling to prevent its release suggests they're far more worried about what's in the report than what's not. This is creating a rare moment where Trump's interests and his co-defendants' interests might not line up perfectly. Trump wants to move on entirely. He wants the narrative to be persecution followed by vindication. But Nata and De Oliveira have their own futures on the line. Protecting themselves could keep this story alive far longer than Trump wants. The irony is hard to miss. Trump surrounded himself with loyalists who did whatever he asked. They moved boxes when he said move boxes. They deleted security footage when that became necessary. They played along because that's what loyalty meant. And now those same loyalists acting out of self-preservation may be the very people who keep Trump's legal problems in the spotlight indefinitely. Loyalty only goes so far when your freedom is at stake. So today we're breaking down exactly what is happening. We'll look at what Nata and De Oliveira are asking for and why. We'll go over what might be inside that final report that has everyone so worried. And we'll talk about what comes next as Trump tries to shut it all down while Congress tries to pry it open. Because this story isn't over, despite how badly Trump wants everyone to think it is. Let's get into it. Alright, let's really dig into what's unfolding here, because there are multiple threads tangled together, and understanding how they intersect is key to the larger picture. First, let's revisit how we got here. The classified documents case was one of the most serious legal threats Trump ever faced. These were allegations that he took highly sensitive government documents to Mar-a-Lago, refused to return them when asked, and that he and his aides obstructed efforts to retrieve them. This wasn't some technical issue. These were national security documents stored in a bathroom or a ballroom at a private resort. The charges included obstruction of justice, willful retention of national defense information, conspiracy to obstruct major federal crimes that could mean major prison time for anyone who wasn't a former president. But Judge Aileen Cannon dismissed the case, ruling that Jack Smith's appointment as special counsel was unconstitutional. A controversial decision, to put it mildly. Appeals were being considered, but then Trump won the election and returned to the White House, and everything shifted. DOJ policy bars prosecuting a sitting president. So even if her ruling had been overturned, the case would have been frozen. Practically speaking, Trump escaped prosecution, at least for now. But escaping prosecution is not the same as escaping consequences. Jack Smith spent months investigating, interviewing witnesses, collecting documents, building a full picture of what allegedly happened. All of that ended up in his final report. The report exists. It's finished. And now, the question is, will the public ever see it? That's what Nata and De Oliveira are trying to stop. On January 6, 2025, they filed an emergency request asking Judge Cannon to block the release. Their claim, releasing it could harm their defense. And that makes sense because the dismissal of Trump's charges doesn't guarantee their charges won't resurface someday. If the report details their conduct, future jurors could be prejudiced. This is where the dynamics get complicated. Nada was Trump's personal aide, the guy moving boxes around Mar-a-Lago, allegedly concealing documents from investigators and even Trump's own lawyers. De Oliveira was the property manager accused of helping delete security footage. These are not side characters. They were allegedly deep in the middle of the obstruction. On one side, Trump wants loyalty. He wants them to maintain that nothing improper occurred. On the other, Nada and De Oliveira must consider their own futures. If they're ever prosecuted, they'll need a clean slate, not a damning report floating around. We've seen how this plays out. Tavares, the IT worker, initially went along with everything, but when the pressure got real, he flipped. He cooperated. He changed his testimony. His cooperation was key to building the obstruction case. That's the pattern. Loyalty holds until self-preservation kicks in. So now we've got this still sealed report, filled with who knows what, and multiple people desperate to keep it hidden. Trump wants it buried because it likely contains damaging details about his behavior. Nada and De Oliveira want it buried because it likely contains damaging details about theirs. They're aligned for now, but their long-term interests might eventually diverge. Meanwhile, Trump's legal team is on a parallel offensive. They wrote a letter to Attorney General Merrick Garland demanding Smith's immediate removal. They want Pam Bondi to take over and make the report go away. The argument, Smith's appointment was illegitimate, so everything he did is invalid, including the report. But here's the flaw: even if Smith is removed, even if Bondi shelves the report, Congress still wants answers. They've subpoenaed Smith for December 17, 2025. Republicans claim they want to expose political bias, but under oath, Smith could reveal details they didn't expect. It might even strengthen the seriousness of what was uncovered instead of undermining it. This mirrors what happened in Georgia. Co-defendants there accepted immunity deals and cooperated, hurting Trump's defense. Tavares already flipped in this case. Others could do the same if pressure mounts. And this is why Trump's situation is far more fragile than it looks. Yes, the case was dismissed. Yes, he's back in the White House. Yes, DOJ policy shields him for now. But the evidence doesn't evaporate. The witnesses don't forget. The documents don't disappear. There are multiple paths for the information to surface: court filings, congressional depositions, the eventual release of the report. Trump's strategy has always been delay, deny, distract until the public tunes out. But some things are too permanent to bury. A special counsel's final report is one of them. Ultimately, this fight isn't about legal motions, it's about controlling the narrative. Trump wants the story to be that he was persecuted and then vindicated. But if the report is released and filled with damaging evidence, that narrative collapses. That's why everyone aligned with Trump is trying to keep it hidden. Meanwhile, remember how the Georgia case played out. Cooperators flipped, and the story deepened. Something similar could unfold here. Trump needs his aides to stay quiet. But those aides face serious allegations and future legal risk. Their smartest move may not match Trump's desires. And once one person flips, it can start a chain reaction. All the alleged acts of loyalty, moving boxes, deleting footage, are now their own legal vulnerability. And when people must choose between loyalty and freedom, they usually choose freedom. So while Trump claims victory, the reality is far more tangled. The report exists. The evidence exists. Congress is probing. Courts are deciding what can be released. And his own co-defendants are making moves that may not align with his interests. This story isn't done, not even close. The December 17th deposition, the rulings on whether the report gets released, whatever Pam Bondi does next, the future of Nada and De Oliveira, none of it is settled. Anyone saying it's over is either lying or not paying attention. Alright, that's what I've got for now. This situation is shifting fast, and the next few weeks will bring massive updates. The deposition, the court decisions, the changes at DOJ, any of these could reshape everything. So make sure you're subscribed. Because when the next shoe drops, and it will, you'll want to be here for the breakdown. Until then, stay informed, stay skeptical, ask the hard questions, and I'll see you in the next one.